Fewer thoughts in the mind, less suffering in life. In Buddhism, mind is the root of all dharmas. The mind or thoughts is the storehouse of karma, wholesome or unwholesome. The Sanskrit term sthita is defined as the whole system of vijnanas, originally pure or mind. Besides, citta is generally translated as thought. In the Lankavatara Sutra as well as in other Mahayana sutras, citta may better be rendered mind, when it is defined as accumulation or as storehouse, where karma seeds are deposited. It is not mere thought, it has an ontological signification also. In the Dhammapada Sutta, the Buddha taught, mind foreruns deeds, mind is chief, and mind-made are they. Mind is another name for alaya vijnana. Unlike the material body, immaterial mind is invisible. We are aware of our thoughts and feelings and so forth by direct sensation, and we infer their existence in others by analogy. The mind is the root of all dharmas. In Contemplation of the Mind Sutra, the Buddha taught, all my tenets are based on the mind that is the source of all dharmas. The mind has brought about the Buddhas, the heaven or the hell. It is the main driving force that makes us happy or sorrowful, cheerful or sad, liberated or doomed. In Zen, it means either the mind of a person in the sense of all his powers of consciousness, mind, heart, and spirit, or else absolutely reality, the mind beyond the distinction between mind and matter. It is for the sake of giving practitioners an easier understanding of mind, Buddhist teachers usually divide the mind into aspects or layers, but to Zen, mind is one great whole, without parts or divisions. The manifestating, illuminating, and non-substantial characteristics of mind exist simultaneously and constantly, inseparable and indivisible in their totality. According to Buddhism, understanding is not an accumulation of knowledge. To the contrary, it is the result of the struggle to become free of knowledge. Understanding shatters old knowledge to make room for the new that accords better with reality. When Copernicus discovered that the Earth goes around the Sun, most of the astronomical knowledge of the time had to be discarded, including the ideas of above and below. Today, physics is struggling valiantly to free itself from the ideas of identity and cause-effect that underlie classical science. Science, like the Way, urges us to get rid of all preconceived notions. Understanding in human is translated into concepts, thoughts, and words. Understanding is not an aggregate of bits of knowledge. It is a direct and immediate penetration. In the realm of sentiment, it is feeling. In the realm of intellect, it is perception. It is an intuition rather than the culmination of reasoning. Every now and again it is fully present in us, and we find we cannot express it in words, thoughts, or concepts. Unable to describe it, that is our situation at such moments. Insights like this are spoken of in Buddhism as impossible to reason about, to discuss, or to incorporate into doctrines or systems of thought. Besides, understanding also means a shield to protect cultivator from the attack of greed, hatred, and ignorance. A man often does wrong because of his ignorance or misunderstanding about himself, his desire of gaining happiness, and the way to obtain happiness. Understanding will also help cultivators with the ability to remove all defilements and strengthen their virtues. All of our desires develop because of the thoughts of our mental factor intention. When we see an attractive object, we develop a wish to obtain that object. In contrary, when we see an unattractive object, we develop a wish not to obtain that object. Sometimes we hate the object. Generally speaking, almost all delusions created by mental ignorance or passion of the heart. The discriminating mind or the deluded mind itself lies at the roof of this birth and death. But people think that this mind is their real mind, so the delusion enters into the causes and conditions that produce suffering. In Buddhist point of view, man's mind influences his body profoundly. If allowed to function viciously and indulge in unwholesome thoughts, mind can cause disaster, can even cause one's death. But on the contrary, a mind imbued with wholesome thoughts can cure a sick body. These are summaries of some of the characters of the mind. However, if we dig a little deeper into details, we will see that human's mind has many more different characteristics. Mind is like an unrest monkey. The functions of mind are very extensive and numberless. Practitioners should always remember that the mind is climbing and jumping like a monkey from trees to trees as a restless monkey. Someone asks a Zen master on how to look into one's self-nature. The Zen master replies, "How can? For if there is a cage with 6 windows, in which there is a monkey, someone calls at one window, "Oh, monkey," and he replies. Someone else calls at another window, and again he replies. And so on. Human's mind is no different from that monkey. That's why the Buddha always reminded his disciples, mind is like an unrest monkey jumping from one tree to another. The activities of the mind have no limit. Mind originates delusion. Mind originates enlightenment. According to the Zen teaching of Huangpo, one day, Zen master Huangpo entered the hall to preach the assembly. Mind is Buddha, while the cessation of conceptual thought is the way. Everything existence or phenomenon arises from the functions of the mind. Mind creates nirvana. Mind creates hells. An impure mind surrounds itself with impure things. A pure mind surrounds itself with pure things. Surroundings have no more limits than the activities of the mind. Mind creates Buddhas. Buddha is like our mind. Mind creates ordinary men. Sentient beings are just like our mind. The mind is a skillful painter who creates pictures of various worlds. There is nothing in the world that is not mind-created. Both life and death arise from the mind and exist within the mind. The mind creates greed, anger, and ignorance. However, that very mind is also able to create giving, patience, and wisdom. A mind that is bewildered by its own world of delusion will lead beings to an unenlightened life. If we learn that there is no world of delusion outside of the mind, the bewildered mind becomes clear. We cease to create impure surroundings, and we attain enlightenment. The mind is the master of every situation. It rules and controls everything. The world of suffering is brought about by the deluded mortal mind. The world of eternal joy is also brought about by the mind, but a clear mind. The mind is as the wheels follow the ox that draws the cart, so does suffering follow the person who speaks and acts with an impure mind. If the mind is impure, it will cause the feet to stumble along a wrong and difficult road. But if a mind is pure, the path will be smooth and the journey peaceful. The functioning of the mind. In the studies of the Lankavatara Sutra, Zen master D. Suzuki distinguished 2 kinds of functioning of the mind. First, functioning is dependent on the individualizing mind and is perceived by the minds of the 2 vehicle followers. It is known as responding body. As they do not know that this is projected by their evolving mind, they take it for something external to themselves, and making it assume a corporeal form, fail to have a thorough knowledge of its nature. Second, functioning is dependent on the karma consciousness. That is, it appears to the minds of those bodhisattvas who have just entered upon the path of bodhisattvahood, as well as of those who have reached the highest stage. This is known as the recompense body. The body is visible in infinite forms. Each form has infinite marks, and each mark is excellent in infinite ways. And the world in which the body has its abode is also embellished in manners infinite varying. As the body is manifested everywhere, it has no limitations whatever. It can never be exhausted. It goes beyond all the conditions of determination. According to the needs of all beings, it becomes visible and is always held by them. It is neither destroyed nor lost sight of. All such characteristics of the body are the perfuming effect of the immaculate deeds, such as the virtues of perfection, and also the work of the mysterious perfuming innate in the Tathagatagarbha. As it is thus possession of immeasurably blissful qualities, it is called recompense body. Third, besides these 2 kinds of functioning, the third kind of functioning is that the mind always functioning without limitations or obstacles. When we speak of mind, we usually think of psychological phenomena such as feelings, thoughts, or perceptions. When we speak of objects of mind, we think of physical phenomena such as mountains, trees, or animals. Speaking this way, we see the phenomenal aspects of mind and its objects, but we don't see their nature. We have observed that these 2 kinds of phenomena, mind and objects of mind, rely on one another for their existence and are therefore interdependent. But we do not see that they themselves have the same nature. This nature is sometimes called mind and sometimes called suchness. Whatever we call it, we cannot measure this nature using concepts. It is boundless and all-inclusive, without limitations or obstacles. From the point of view of unity, it is called Dharmakaya. From the point of view of duality, it is called mind without obstacle, encountering world without obstacle. The Avatamsaka Sutra calls it unobstructed mind, and unobstructed object. The mind and the world contain each other so completely and perfectly that we call this perfect unity of mind and object. Mind of understanding ourselves. Understanding ourselves means understanding things as they really are. That is, seeing the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and non-substantial, or non-self nature of the five aggregates of clinging in ourselves. It is not easy to understand ourselves because of our wrong concepts, baseless illusions, perversions, and delusions. It is so difficult to see the real person. The Buddha taught that in order to be able to understand ourselves, we must first see and understand the impermanence of the five aggregates. He compares material form or body to a lump of foam, feeling to a bubble, perception to a mirage, mental formations or volitional activities to water lily plant which is without heartwood, and consciousness to an illusion. The Buddha says, whatever material form there be, whether past, future, or present, internal, external, gross or subtle, low or lofty, far or near, that material form is empty, unsubstantial, and without essence. In the same manner, the remaining aggregates, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness, are also empty, unsubstantial, and without essence. Thus, the five aggregates are impermanent. Whatever is impermanent, that is suffering, unsatisfactory, and without self. Whenever you understand this, you understand yourselves. No one can run away from the mind. According to Bhikkhu Piyananda in the Gems of Buddhism Wisdom, you cannot run away from your mind. By meditation, you can train the mind to keep calm and be free from disturbances, either from within or outside. Apply concentrated awareness to the internal confusions and mental conflicts, and observe or pay attention to all the changing states of your mind. When the mind is properly developed, it brings happiness and bliss. If the mind is neglected, it runs you into endless troubles and difficulties. The disciplined mind is strong and effective, while the wavering mind is weak and ineffective. The wise train their minds as thoroughly as a horse trainer trains their horses. Therefore, you should watch your mind. When you sit alone, you should observe the changing conditions of the mind. The task is only a matter of observing the changing states, not fighting with the mind, or avoid it, or try to control it. When the mind is in a state of lust, be aware that we are having a mind of lust. When the mind is in a state of hatred, or when it is free from hatred, be aware that we are having a mind of hatred, or free from hatred. When you have the concentrated mind or the scattered mind, you should be aware that we are having a concentrated or a scattered mind. You should always remember that your job is to observe all these changing conditions without identifying yourself with them. Your job is to turn your attention away from the outside world and focus in yourself. This is very difficult, but it can be done. In all activities of your daily life, you should always watch your mind and to observe your mind in all kinds of situations. To observe the working of your mind without identifying with or finding justification for your thoughts, without erecting the screen of prejudice, without expecting reward or satisfaction. To observe the senses of desire, hatred, jealousy, and other unwholesome states that arise and upset the balance of the mind. Continue meditation practices to check and eliminate these harmful elements. The mind is the core of our existence. According to the Buddhist point of view, the mind or consciousness is the core of our existence. All our psychological experiences, such as pain and pleasure, sorrow and happiness, good and evil, life and death, are not attributed to any external agency. They are only the result of our own thoughts and their resultant actions. Mind actually influences the body in every minute of life. If we allow it to function with the vicious and unwholesome thoughts, mind can cause disaster. It can even kill another being. However, when the mind is concentrated on right thoughts with right effort and understanding, it can produce an excellent effect. Thus, the Buddha taught, no enemy can harm one so much as one's own thoughts of craving, thoughts of hate, thoughts of jealousy, and so on. A mind with pure and wholesome thoughts really lead to a peaceful and relaxed life. Mind is not separate from the world of thoughts and feelings. How can it leave and retire into itself? When we look at the tree in front of us, our mind does not go outside of us into the forest, nor does it open a door to let the trees in. Our mind fixes on the trees, but they are not a distinct object. Our mind and the trees are one. The trees are only one of the miraculous manifestations of the mind. According to the sutra in 42 sections, chapter 31, the Buddha said, "There was once someone who, plagued by ceaseless sexual desire, wished to castrate himself. To cut off your sexual organs would not be as good as to cut off your mind. Your mind is like a supervisor. If the supervisor stops, his employees will also quit. If the deviant mind is not stopped, what good does it do to cut off the organs?" The Kasyapa Buddha taught, "Desire is born from your will is born from thought. When both aspects of the mind are still, there is neither form nor activity." Generally speaking, men are not disturbed by things, but by the notions they form concerning things. The death, for example, is not in itself fearful. The fear resides only in our mind. Attachment to life on earth stimulates the unnatural, morbid fear of death. Devout Buddhists should always realize that death is inevitable, so there is no reason for us to be fearful with such an inevitable event. No matter what we say, it's extremely difficult for us to despite and ignore these manifestations of the instinct for self-preservation, for this is the natural nature of the mind. However, Buddhists still have an effective method of overcoming it. This is to forget the self in service for other people. It is to turn our love from inwards to outwards. As a matter of fact, a conceptual thought perceives its objects indirectly and unclearly through a generic image. The mind is discriminating various forms, and the mind itself gets attached to a variety of signs of existence. The discriminating mind lies at the roof of this birth and death, but people think that this mind is their real mind, so the delusion enters into the causes and conditions that produce suffering. In short, according to Buddhism, mind is the root of all dharmas. In Contemplation of the Mind Sutra, the Buddha taught, "All my tenets are based on the mind that is the source of all dharmas." The mind has brought about the Buddhas, the heaven or the hell. It is the main driving force that makes us happy or sorrowful, cheerful or sad, liberated or doomed. Meanwhile, the inner layer aspect of the mind means the form or nature. What is the nature of the mind? In Zen, the nature of the mind is self-awareness. To be self-awareness means to be aware of the results of the play of consciousness, or to be conscious of the impression received, or the images captured by the consciousnesses. To be conscious of this play is an absolute, pure experience, in which there is no subject, knower, or object known, the knower and the known having coalesced into one entity of pure feeling. In this pure feeling, there is no room for the dichotomy of dualism. Pure self-awareness is intrinsically and experientially non-dualistic, as the Buddhist sages have testified over many centuries. Self-awareness, or the nature of the mind, is not the function of knowing, but the knowing itself in its most intrinsic form. He who discovers this self-awareness finds his whole being changed. While engaged in any activity, he feels as though he were transcending the activity. He talks and walks, but he feels that his talking and walking is not the same as before. He now walks with an opened mind. He actually knows that it is he who is doing the walking. The director himself is sitting right in the center of his mind, controlling all his actions with spontaneity. He walks in bright awareness and with illumined spirit. In other words, the man who realizes self-awareness feels that he is no more the obedient servant of blind impulse, but is his own master. He then senses that ordinary people, blind to their innate bright awareness, tread the streets like walking corpses. A Chinese Zen master once said, "Before a man practices Zen, to him mountains are mountains, and rivers are rivers. After he gets an insight into the truth of Zen through the instructions of a good Zen master, mountains to him are no longer mountains, and rivers are no longer rivers. But after this, when he really attains the abode of rest, mountains are once more mountains, and rivers are rivers." What is the meaning of this? According to Zen master Thich Thien An in Zen Philosophy, Zen Practice, the first sentence expresses the viewpoint of the unenlightened man, the common understanding which views things in terms of false thinking. This requires no explanation, for it is a viewpoint with which we are all familiar. The second sentence is more difficult to understand. Why does he say that the mountain is not a mountain, the river is not a river? Let us understand it this way. What is a mountain? A mountain is a combination of rocks, trees, and plants which we group together under the name mountain. Hence, the mountain is not the mountain. Again, what is a river? A river is a combination of a lot of water flowing together, a combination which is constantly changing. There is no abiding entity, river. Hence the river is not a river. This is the real meaning of the second sentence. In the third sentence, the master says that for the man who has fully realized Zen, mountain is once again a mountain, and the river once again a river. Conceptually, this way of looking at things is indistinguishable from the viewpoint of common sense, but experientially, the vision of the enlightened man is radically different from his vision before enlightenment. Earlier, when he looked at the mountain, he viewed it with a discriminating mind. He saw it as high or low, big or small, beautiful or ugly. His discriminating mind gave rise to love and hate, attraction and repulsion. But after enlightenment, he looks at things with utmost simplicity. He sees the mountain as a mountain, not as high or low, the river as a river, not as beautiful or ugly. He sees things without distinction or comparison, merely reflecting them like a mirror exactly as they are. Buddhist practitioners should always remember the mind of a cultivator must be pure. Do not follow outward appearances or rupas which are capable of receiving sense objects such as visible object, sound, taste, etc. To have this kind of following outward appearances, in fact, nothing but a lot of trouble, because it leads to discrimination in our thinking and prevents us from being able to concentrate. Being unable to concentrate or focus our energy on cultivation, our idle thoughts run wild, then afflictions come in droves, herds. If we do not crave this following of outward appearances in the first place, then we also will not have afflictions, and we are free of impediments. According to the Heart Sutra, the Buddha taught, because there is no impediment, he leaves distorted thinking far behind, ultimately nirvana. This, then, should be the very mind of inner self-awareness, and not the mind that runs after outer things. And this, then, should be the mind of a devout cultivator, mental intelligence or spirit of mind. Whether something objective is troublesome or not often depends on the state of mind, rather than the object itself. If we think that it is trouble, then it is trouble. If we do not think that it is trouble, then it is not trouble. Everything depends on the mind. For example, sometimes during meditation, we are interrupted by outside noises. If we dwell on them and cling to them, they will disturb our meditation. But if we dismiss them from our minds as soon as they arise, then they will not cause a disturbance. If we are always demanding something out of our life, then we will never be content. But if we accept life as it is, then we know contentment. Some people seek happiness through material things. Other people can be happy without many material things. Why? Because happiness is also a state of mind, not a quantitative measure of possessions. If we are satisfied with what we are and have now, then we are happy. But if we are not satisfied with what we are and have now, that is where unhappiness dwells. The desire is bottomless, because no matter how much is put into it, it can never be filled up. It always remains empty. According to the 3 pillars of Zen, one day Zen master Hakun Yasutani, 1885-1973, entered the hall to teach the assembly. Suppose I cover my head with my robe and raise my hands in the air. If you see only my hands, you are likely to think there are just 2 objects. But if I uncover myself, you see that I am also a person, not merely 2 hands. In the same way, you must realize that to view objects as separated entities is only half the truth. Again, take a circle with a nucleus. Without the nucleus, there is no circle. Without the circle, no nucleus. You are the nucleus. The circle is the universe. If you exist, the universe exists, and if you disappear, the universe likewise disappears. Everything is related and interdependent. This box on the table has no independent existence. It exists in reference to my eyes, which see it differently from yours and differently again from the next person's. Accordingly, if I were blind, the box would cease to exist for me. All existence is relative, yet each of us creates his own world. Each perceives according to the state of his own mind. The sutra in 42 chapters taught, though a person with a state of mind filled with desires dwells in heaven, still that is not enough for him. Though a person who has ended desire dwells on the ground, still he is happy. According to the Lankavatara Sutra, there are 3 states of mind or consciousness. First, mind of the Tathagata Garbha, also called the original or fundamental unsullied consciousness of mind, or the 8th consciousness, or alaya. Second, manifested mind, also called the consciousness diversified in contact with or producing phenomena, good or evil. Third, mind of discrimination, also called the consciousness discriminating and evolving the objects of the five senses. According to Buddhist teachings, kusala means volitional action that is done in accordance with the Aryan Eightfold Noble Path. So, kusala is not only in accordance with the right action, but it is also always in accordance with the right view, right understanding, right speech, right livelihood, right energy, right concentration, and right samadhi. Meanwhile, unwholesome deeds, anything connected with the unwholesome root or akasula mula, accompanied by greed, hate, or delusion and cause undesirable karmic results or future suffering. There are two kinds of causes in the world, good causes and bad causes. If we create good causes, we will reap good results. If we create bad causes, we will surely reap bad results. According to the path of purification, unwholesome deeds are both unprofitable action and courses that lead to unhappy destinies. Kusala karmas or good deeds will help a person control a lot of troubles arising from his mind. Inversely, if a person does evil deeds, he will receive bad results in this life and the next existence, which are suffering. Wholesome mind or good heart associates with good thoughts. Good mind initiates beneficial intentions towards others, compassion, loving kindness, generosity, patience, good speech, tolerance, love, faith, wishing to help others, etc. Wholesome mind can be used to dispel negative minds. According to Buddhism, wholesome mind also means rectifying mind with a true-hearted will. In cultivating the way, we must lay a solid foundation. Although we know it is clear that the mind is not ourself, not belonging to us, not I, not mind. However, if we want to put an end to birth and death, we must exert efforts in cultivating the wholesome mind. We must obtain the wholesome mind before cultivating the body. It means we should get rid of our lust, random thoughts, and materialistic desires. Materialistic desires include the desires for wealth, sex, fame, food, and sleep. In addition, wholesome mind also means making the will sincere. It is to say that once we make a decision to cultivate wholesome dharma, we will be always the same, not to cultivate today and stop cultivating tomorrow. Once we have faith in Buddhism, that faith should be everlasting, true-hearted, and firm. Meanwhile, according to Buddhism, unwholesome or evil means negative or not good, contrary to the right and harmful to present and future life. According to the long discourses of the Buddha, Sangiti Sutra, unwholesome minds initiate unwholesome thoughts, which are the three root causes of all evil, namely thoughts of lust, craving, hate, and delusion. Unwholesome minds lead to unwholesome deeds, which include the following, but not limited to: greed, anger, stupidity, arrogance, doubt, improper views, killing living things, stealing, or taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, and wandering thoughts. According to the path of purification, 10 unwholesome deeds are both unprofitable action and courses that lead to unhappy destinies. Killing living things, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, malicious speech, harsh speech, gossip, covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. In cultivation, Buddhist practitioners must try to cultivate to eliminate negative or unwholesome mind, the mind that creates negative or unwholesome thoughts, anger, hatred, harmful thoughts, wrong views, etc., speech, lying, harsh speech, double-tongued, etc., as well as deeds which are the causes of our sufferings, confusion, and misery. Negative or unwholesome mind creates negative or unwholesome thoughts, anger, hatred, harmful thoughts, wrong views, etc., speech, lying, harsh speech, double-tongued, etc., as well as deeds which are the causes of our sufferings, confusion, and misery. Unwholesome or negative mind will destroy our inner peace and tranquility. According to the Abhidharma, unwholesome consciousness is rooted in either greed or in delusion. Unwholesome consciousness is rooted in greed, accompanied by greed, consciousness that accompanied by joy, associated with wrong view, the view that may be either reinforce the attachment from which the consciousness springs by providing it with a rational justification, or the view itself may be an object of attachment in its own right. Unprompted, the absence of prompting, i.e. with joy, holding the view that there is no evil in stealing, a boy spontaneously steals an apple from a fruit stall. Consciousness that accompanied by joy, associated from wrong view, prompted, the presence of prompting, i.e. with joy, holding the view that there is no evil in stealing, a boy steals an apple through the prompting of a friend. Consciousness that accompanied by joy, dissociated from wrong view, unprompted, i.e. with joy, a boy steals an apple, without any prompting, from a fruit stall, knowing that stealing is an evil deed, does not hold any wrong view. Consciousness that accompanied by joy, dissociated from wrong view, prompted, i.e. with joy and prompting from a friend, a boy steals an apple from a fruit stall, knowing that stealing is an evil deed, does not hold any wrong view. Consciousness that accompanied by equanimity, associated with wrong view, unprompted, i.e. with neutral feeling, not joy nor sorrow, a boy steals an apple, without any prompting, holding the view that there is no evil in stealing, does hold wrong view. Consciousness that accompanied by equanimity, associated with wrong view, prompted, i.e. with neutral feeling, prompting from a friend, a boy steals an apple from a fruit stall, holding the view that there is no evil in stealing. Consciousness that accompanied by equanimity, dissociated from wrong view, unprompted, i.e. with neutral feeling, without any prompting, a boy steals an apple even though he knows that stealing is an evil deed, disassociated with wrong view. Consciousness that accompanied by equanimity, dissociated from wrong view, prompted, i.e. with neutral feeling and prompting from a friend, a boy steals an apple, even though he knows that stealing is an evil deed, disassociated from wrong view. Unwholesome consciousness is rooted in hatred, accompanied by hatred, consciousness that accompanied by displeasure, associated with aversion, unprompted, i.e. with hatred, a man murders another in a spontaneous fit of rage. Consciousness that accompanied by displeasure, associated with aversion, prompted, i.e. with hatred, one man murders another after premeditation. Unwholesome consciousness is rooted in delusion, accompanied by delusion, consciousness that accompanied by equanimity, associated with doubt, i.e. due to delusion, a man doubts the enlightenment of the Buddha or the efficacy of the Dharma as a way to deliverance. Consciousness that accompanied by equanimity, associated with restlessness, i.e. due to delusion, a person is so distracted in mind that he cannot focus his mind on any object.